Welcome to another episode of Warhero2Superhero, helping military, veterans, and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Faust. I hope you're going over and having a great August. And as we've been thinking about August, we've been thinking our theme for this month is transformation because we are approaching a new world. Tomorrow morning, our kids will go get notification if they're going online or they're going to school in person and whatnot. And our lives are going to transform drastically. We already went through COVID 1.0, and now with the new school year, we're going into 2.0. So for us, we are making a transformation, and we hope to go over and have you guys walk with us in that transformation from the bedroom to the boardroom. This week's focus is in the bedroom. As you can go see, we're virtually in the bedroom. And this topic that you're going over and seeing, either if you're watching this tonight, tomorrow, or on video on demand, is to change your heart. The biggest transformation we need to make from war hero to superhero is actually our hearts. If we don't go over and change that, nothing else goes over and changes. As we go over and realize and see, the heart leaks out through our words. The average man goes over and speaks 50,000 words, and the average lady speaks 100,000 words. And here's the question that I ask: as you change your heart, what comes out of it? Are you an edifying person with the words that you go over and choose? Or are you going over and destroying? Now, how do you know if you're going over and doing this? Sometimes you might be naive of it. Other times you might go over and be actively be doing this. So instead of going over and having tons of questions, I'm going to put myself as a case study because I want you to learn from me so you can go over and live and thrive. So I was raised in Rhode Island, and I don't know if it was the state or my family or just my upbringing, but my heart was messed up because of the words I went over and heard, and the words I went over and said, and the words I went over and betrayed. So pretty much my parents were constantly fighting on the edge of divorce. I was constantly mocked and ridiculed. And the way I went over and worked through my brokenness is by going over and hurting others. Sarcasm was that language. Sarcasm goes over and says, hey, it's just funny. But really, what I was going and doing is I had a tainted heart, and I was an angry and bitter child, teen, and eventually adult. So this went on. My parents got a divorce. I became more bitter. My words became more harsh. They became more sarcastic, and I was pretty much broken. I go over and go on. Parents go over and get a divorce. Then I go deal with other issues of sexual molestation and eventually my brother's death. Those three things, with all the other things that came, culminated to a sarcastic, bitter teenager, which transformed to a sarcastic, bitter man. Over time, I didn't like going over and living in Rhode Island for many reasons, and it wasn't just for those. So I eventually stumbled upon a recruiter through a girl that I liked, and I went to the recruiter because I liked the girl. I went over and expressed my feelings, found out she wasn't congruent with all those feelings, and I got more interested in the military. And I thought to myself, if I go in the United States Air Force, I'll find the job that I want, and then the stuff that I dealt with will hopefully go away. Because if I'm away from the situation, away from the people, and I rewrite my life, I'm going to go rewrite what I did. And for a while, that went over and worked. Basic training in tech school was good. Went to active duty, and I went over, and most of those situations went away. I thought my heart was healed in a sense. I became a Christian, and I thought that everything was going to go over and be fine, and fine as fine could be. I'm seeing transformation in my life because I'm going over and starting to change some of those things. And I come to find out I really didn't. At first I did. I thought I got to Germany and I'm like, yeah, going pretty well and everything else. And then I go over and get to Korea and that bitter young old man started coming out again. But I'm thinking to myself, it's situational. Everybody thinks Korea sucks. You know, you go to Kunsan Air Force Base, you're stuck in Korea for a year, you don't get to go see family, you're isolated and everything else. And it's just situational. That's it. So I go over and Korea was supposed to go to Iceland. Iceland didn't go to Iceland. Again, situational. It's because of this bad situation. I was supposed to go to Iceland and now I don't know where I'm going and I've lost my assignment. Again, I think it's situational. I go over and I get to finally my new base, I get to McCord. And you either didn't like Washington or like Washington. Come to find out, I kept blaming situations on how I was. Well, I go over and get married to a beautiful, sexy, gorgeous, caring, loving wife. And we both have the same faith together, and we both have the same kind of thoughts together, and we both were kind of left on the outside skirts of life. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the person I need to go over and be with. This is the person that we both can go over and grow together. This is the situational suck in the words in my heart now goes away until I go over and get married. I go over and get married, and for the next 7 years, I blame situation after situation, argument after argument, moment after moment, not being where I'm supposed to be and I just kept spewing. Now, obviously, in most relationships, we don't do that with our coworkers. We don't do that with our bosses. We sort of only do it with our friends. We really be who we really are when we're in the bedroom. Just going to call it point blank. You are most authentic, most real in your bedroom, and typically in your living room. Bedroom, living room. Those are the two main places that we became real. So my messed up self, with all the brokenness and all the over and junk, started to become real and authentic. That's initially good in some senses, but not in the sense that when you're continuing to verbally spew. I was verbally toxic. I was bit by bit, word by word, and me, I said the average man had 50,000 words, the average woman had 100,000 words. I had 150,000 words. I'm doing a podcast in the middle of the night for our TV show right now. Actually, this is a TV show, and I'm still talking until the end of this day. I'm not the typical man. I'm not the typical woman. So I spewed, and I did this on and on again for about 7 years, 2,000 days. Some days I was conscious of it. Most days I wasn't. I was that broken in my heart and in my mind. So I get to 7 years, and it wasn't like planned on 7 years. It just happened that way. So from 2006, we almost got divorced in 2007, started to go over and reconcile, work through some things. My wife had a big heart transformation in 2012 to 2013. And that particular point, there was one evening moving back to Washington State. I did my normal covert chewing, which I'm not proud of. And I got the spiritual nut kicking of the century. I want to say this again. I got the spiritual nut kicking of the century. This was so needed. Not in the moment I wanted it, but this was a 3 to 4 hour reflection of what I did for roughly 2,000 days. Everything that I did wrong. And no situation deserved on how I spewed on a regular basis. You could say to yourself, but you went through your parents' divorce, you went through your brother's death, you were sexually molested on and off for years. But that doesn't matter. A true war hero to superhero, no matter the trials, goes over and realizes as the war hero, we lived out the chaos, we lived out the moment. But as a transformed superhero, you go over and start working through those heart issues. And you don't go over and pour your junk in your bedroom. You don't pour your junk in the living room. You don't pour your junk into the boardroom. You go over and utilize that bedroom to work through that junk, in the living room to work through that junk, and even the boardroom working through that junk. So you can then go over and serve as a superhero. That day wrecked me. Everything I said, everything I did flashed back. It's like one of those videos. If you ever watch one of those videos that you see those transformations happen. Darman, I think he's a very influential Facebook videos that he does those types of videos. Those types of moments happened with me in those 3 to 4 hours. I saw what I went over and did and who I was becoming. So I had to go over and rewrite the script. I had to go over and change my heart. I had to go over and change my mind. I had to go over and change my words. My words were destroying this beautiful, precious jewel, more precious than a diamond. And I found some way to chip and smash her bit by bit by my words. Words are powerful. But what truly it is what the heart goes over and resonates. Whatever's inside the heart resonates out and the mouth speaks. And I was a broken man, to say the least. So now you're watching this and saying to yourself, why did you go over and share this? Why did you go over and become more vulnerable? Why did you even pour this on in front of this episode? What is the point? I know, bar none, most likely you're watching this is because this interests you. But more than likely, your heart has been broken in some sort of capacity. And you, in one way or another, active or passive, have done this. Maybe not as horrible as I have, or maybe even worse, depending on the situation and scenario. And if you're at the point of brokenness where I was 7 years ago, you think there's no hope, there's nothing left. I'm telling you, there is hope left. And I want to share what I went over and learned, and hopefully you go over and glean off. So if you're in this situation right now, in the bedroom, and it's a mess, and maybe divorce is on the table, maybe COVID is going over and pushed you too far, maybe you haven't been connected in a long time and you're sleeping in the spare room or sleeping on the couch, or you're up late at night avoiding to go and go to sleep, or maybe you just are two passing ships in the night. I want to tell you, your marriage can be reconciled. I was at the brink of divorce. I have 4 kids, and I was active duty, well, through that time until 2013, and then I was a reservist. We've been almost homeless after that a couple times. We've gone over and moved several times. We've almost lost 3 out of our 4 kids. We've deployed several times. And I'm going to tell you, no matter where you're at in your transformation from warhero to superhero, that your bedroom can be reconciled. So let's go speak about what I went over and learned, and hopefully something goes over and resonates for you that you can start making this transformation. So what did we learn? What did I go over and learn from this? First part, the heart wants to speak naturally. You could be an active talker like myself or a passive talker like my wife. But the huge part is that the heart naturally wants to go over and speak, especially when you're hurting. So what's huge on a regular basis is to go over and to think before speaking. If you go over and speak what you go over and feel naturally, it's a hit or miss, and more likely it's going to be a miss. If you have any of the brokenness I went over and had pre-military or post-military or post-first responder or whatever you dealt with, you could have been dealing with deaths, you could have been dealing with gunshots, you could have been dealing with other things, you could have been dealing with other past abuse, whatever it is. If you allow your heart to naturally lead, you're going to be hit or miss, and you're more likely to be missed. So First things first, manage with your mind more than your heart and think before you speak. Going with that, the second lesson I learned is E over I sets the lie. I over E sets you free. And what I mean by that is that our emotions, like our heart, will tend to naturally go over and lead. So when I'm feeling it out, I'm going to naturally justify what I say. They could go to did something idiotic, and I'll be like, this is stupid. I didn't have to go over and say that. There's better ways to go over and communicate that. And when I communicate with my heart, and most of it's because of brokenness, then I'm going to set the line. I'm going to justify. I was so covert that I could destroy my wife and then she would ask for forgiveness. That's how messed up I was. And I used that E over I constantly until she went over and healed and then became that strong woman that I go over and needed. And I needed to get back and rooted into my faith and then take the lessons of life to go over and learn. I was doing the E over I. What we really know go over and do is take the intelligence that we're born with, the intelligence that we're imbued with, and if you have faith, the intelligence that you're given through your God or whatever deity you have, and utilize that first. And then we check our emotions in our heart with that afterwards as a barometer, and then we set ourselves free. Additionally, one of the lessons I went over and learned is the junk in your head will come out of your mouth. So it doesn't matter if it's gone over in a lost job, or maybe it's a broken relationship from the past, or whatever it is. If you're not dealing with it, the junk out of your head will come out of your mouth. Your heart will go over and lead. Your heart will go over and bleed. And more than likely, you're bleeding over other people. There's a safe place. You need to go over and do that. But the long story short is that you have to go deal with it first. I started getting spiritual counseling. I'm in counseling right now, specifically with further walking down the road. I'm a lot better than where I was in year 7. It took 5 years of active transformation to get to these truths. But the junk in my head, I didn't deal with. I sort of dealt with it, but I never truly dealt with it. And it's not just there. You got to deal both. You got to deal with the emotional hurt and the intellectual hurt, because if you don't, it will spew out. Person like me, you're a more active spewer. If you're a person more like my wife, you could be a passive spewer. Whatever it is, it's going to come out somehow. So go over and deal with it. Additionally, one of the truths I had to really realize is that if I don't go deal with my hurts, we will hurt the ones we love. So deal with the hurts. We tend to go over, especially as men, I'm speaking to the men just briefly here, is that we tend to go over and put our emotions in our sleeves and hide it out, or go over and try to man up. That needs to stop. You're eventually going to go deal with it. You'll deal with it anger. You'll deal with bitterness. You'll deal with it your words. You might deal with it with not connecting with your spouse. You might deal with not connecting with your kids. Ladies, you could potentially do the same thing. Men, we're more apparent to go over and do that. Either person, male or female, doesn't matter if you're a military veteran, first responder, wherever you're my audience, you will go over, and if you don't deal with those hurts, no matter how much they are, you will go over and pour it on one to another. So take the opportunity, especially when you have it, to utilize those resources. We are one of your resources too. I'd rather take your hurt than your spouse take your hurt. That's why we're here for you. With that, asking for help is better than just avoiding. Avoiding works for a season. We can change the deck chairs. We can go do certain things. Maybe it's a new workout routine. Maybe it's new friends. Maybe it's something. Maybe it's playing video games, anything else. At the end of the day, at your darkest hour, at your most vulnerable hour, you will go over, and that avoidance will not hold. You're trying to hold onto a wall that you makeshift built, and it will eventually collapse. Circumstances, time, and other things will go on and happen. The walls will come tumbling down. So ask for help. We all need to grow. We all need to transform. So don't go over and wait to ask for the help. It might be a military family life consultant. It might be a chaplain. It might be a friend. It might be a counselor. It might be us. No matter who it is, asking for your help is better than just avoiding. If I'm bold enough, and I'm just saying this because I'm doing this, to go to a mental health counselor to work on marriage, none of us can go over and say that we are okay and pull them by the bootstraps. It's better to go ask for help. A lot of people go over and collapse from people that are low influence to super high influence because we think that we're better or we're in a certain position. I am no better than you. I am just have a heart to go over and to help. That is the only difference. And I'm just encouraging you to say, ask for help and just avoid it. Also, when you start looking in, it will help you transform from the inside out. So we need to go over and get deep. That was one of the truths I had to do. I had to go rewrite the script on everything I went over and believed, everything I go over and did, everything I went over and said, and how life was. Live and learn is stupid. I didn't make the business Learn and Live just to get a catchy name. I did it because live and learn is a stupid concept. Why keep getting hurt and then learning the lesson later on? I did that for about 2,000 days. I did that for about 30 years. To be honest, those 2,000 days were with my wife. 30 years of living and learning. You can live and learn. That's asinine. You don't go over and do that for a business. If you become a doctor, you don't go over like, yeah, I'm just going to go in the body and just cut apart and hope that ever happens. You go to school for 8 years. We need to go to school for our spouses and get that doctorate degree. We need to go to school and get that bachelor's degree in our kid. We need to go to school to get that associate's degree in the people we work with. And that's when we start looking in. When you look in, you'll start transforming on the inside out. The biggest one that I learned, wrong button. The biggest one that I went over and learned, and I hope that you go over and take this. Your biggest problem in your marriage is you. Wasn't my wife, wasn't the military life, wasn't the deployments, wasn't going over in the checkbook, wasn't going over in the past stuff. It was me. Most marriages transform when you start looking at yourself and saying, how can I go over and transform? That's when marriages go over and really come together. That's when you go over and have your heart go over and heal. That's when you go over and things change. When we think the other person and we point the fingers, it's accusatory. It doesn't work. Doesn't matter. You can't expect your spouse to fix themselves if you are doing nothing. The example is everything. It's the same thing here. If I'm not continually transforming as an example, I can never even expect you to even take a superhero challenge. And with that, this week, our superhero challenge to you in this episode, if you watch us in the live or in the replay, is what is one way for you to change your words, change your attitude, change your heart, change your behavior, wherever you need to start so you can connect better with your spouse. I would love to go hear this on our Warhero2Superhero Facebook page or Twitter, or even on the show. We'd love to go and connect with you. We hope this was transformative for you, because our heart and our goal is for you to go from that war hero to superhero. If you're struggling in this bedroom right now, we'd love to go and connect with you. 20 minutes free. Get our number. Connect with us on the Easy Way wall. If you want to transform your life to the next level, connect with us on Patriot.com, Thrive Not Survive. And for $5 a month, we want to help you go over and make that transformation. Don't do what I did for 30 years and 2,000 days in marriage. Don't go over and spew and wait. Live and learn is no point. A warhero superhero learns and lives, and that's what makes you thrive. We want you to go over and have that. We hope this is informative for you. We hope that you can connect with us, and if nothing else, that you start making that transformational change, that your bedroom looks better